Welcome, friends,
to the How-To Heretic.
I'm Uncle Mark.
And I'm Uncle Dan.
And this is your user's guide to life on the outside.
That's right. Leaving religion is the first step into a larger, better world.
But it can be a scary world. Things work differently now.
Never fear. That's why we're here.
We're your audio uncles. And with help from good friends and experts in all sorts of fields.
We're going to share the stories and seek the knowledge to build a great life.
After all, you only get the one that we know of, so you'd better make the most of it.
Tally-ho!
Well, uncles.
Nope, just right now, currently, it's just you and me, Uncle
Just
Mark.
you and me. Once again, the devil's triangle has been reduced to a straight line.
To a line.
Yeah.
Uncle Doug is definitely not in a sanitarium.
Nope.
So
he is not at large.
Don't worry about it. Where is he? Not your business. Mind it.
Yeah,
Mind
and
your
apparently
business.
not ours either. So
yeah, exactly. We're not told anything either.
But boy, we have a special treat this week.
Yeah, we're going to bring in a ringer.
We're bringing in a ringer.
Anyone who knows and loves the what's my other show?
It's Thank God I'm Atheist, the podcast.
Thank God I'm Atheist, right.
Yes.
That podcast will be thrilled to learn that Mark is finally getting his uncle, or you're not, fuck me, where is my brain? Frank.
It's been a long record.
It's been a long year. Frank from Thank God I'm Atheist is getting his uncle wings.
That's
and joining
right.
us
That's
today.
right. And there are two queer uncles on the show.
It is the gayest damned how-to heretic of all time.
And we almost never talk about it on this show, so that's fun too.
There you go.
So yeah, Frank's joining us, and he's got some learning on a very specific topic. But before we get to his, I am going to talk about nightmares in print that I'll bet probably close to 100% of our listeners have seen.
Yeah, it's what a fun world you're going to explore for us. And then
I'm sorry, I'm just going to say quickly there, throughout the show there are some mentions of violence and some perpetration of bad things involving children. Be warned. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then Frank, like you said, is going to scold us for thinking that everything is the church's fault.
Yeah, I didn't care for that.
And then I'm going to talk about a specific kind of heretic, and why it's okay to be that thing. So
yeah, so it's an interesting show. There's kind of an accidental theme, and you'll detect it. And
yeah, exactly.
And other than that, I think let's just jump right in.
Woohoo! Hey, Uncle Frank.
Uncle Dan.
Yeah, so it's great. I love that you're on here. Listen, you and I grew up. All of us grew up Mormon.
Yes.
But you grew up Mormon in a different part of this country than I did. You weren't in Salt Lake.
No.
A lot of yours.
A lot of Northern California, a lot of rural Oklahoma.
Right. And it's that rural Oklahoma where I'm guessing you encountered a lot of different kinds of Christian evangelizing. Is that fair? Do you think?
I think we steered clear of it. You know.
Oh, okay.
The Feldmans, we didn't really mix with the non-Mormons.
Oh well,
That's for the best. That's for the best.
That's right. There is that sort of Mormon xenophobia. That's
yeah. And it was really hard in Oklahoma because there were like 5 of us. So.
Right.
So it was a tight-knit circle.
Well, Uncle Mark, I think you have. You can teach us then.
Well,
those of us who didn't encounter this. One of the ways that we might have, that other people have encountered the evangelizing of annoying Christians.
Yeah, if you're lucky enough to have been evangelized in several different mediums, you might know what I'm talking about today. So, you know, guys, there seems to be a little bit of a theme running through my segments these past few weeks, from the horrible woman Beatrice Sparks, who wrote Go Ask Alice in Jay's journal, in which her fanatical Mormon moralizing agenda led her to do horrific damage to a real family in mourning. And then also the Halloween candy panic, which I talked about a couple shows back, where most of an entire modern nation believed some salacious lies and utter bullshit about people wanting to poison their children for no reason.
Right.
And so I kind of continue the streak with today's subject, which kind of ties both those themes up nicely in a poisonous bow of lies, terror, and manipulation. But before we get to it, there's another theme we find ourselves hitting on here on our little show from time to time, and that is discovering some very disappointing person having some real, actually impressive achievement, like L. Ron Hubbard being the most published author in history.
Right.
Or Mormon prophet Russell M. Nelson having apparently been pivotal to the development of the heart-lung machine.
Oh.
Did you guys know that?
No.
He was involved in that. So that when they do transplant surgery or whatever, they use that to keep you alive.
Oh.
So there you go. And today's subject...
Thanks, Rusty.
Thanks, Rusty, for doing some useful thing in this life.
Right.
And today's subject being the most prolific cartoonist in history. And that impressive yet disappointing person is none other than the master of pen and ink nightmare fuel, Jack Chick.
Ah. Gotta love it.
Jack's been dead for just a few years now. He went to his weird glory in 2016 at the age of 92.
Wow.
But his influence over a 50-year career is impossible to overstate. In addition to being the most prolific and published cartoonist of all time, he may be the most prolific single missionary for Christianity ever, or at least a very determined, diabolically twisted and sadistic version of it. Very demented, not determined, or more accurately, a more twisted and sadistic version than the usual version.
Right.
When I say prolific as both an artist/writer and Christian missionary, his eponymous little cartoons, known as Chick Tracts, number close to 1 billion in circulation.
Jesus.
And have been printed in something like 40 languages.
Yikes.
Which is nothing to sneeze at. The extremely reclusive Chick wanted to evangelize, but was apparently far too shy to do it face-to-face for some reason. As a World War II veteran, he learned during his time in the hell of the Pacific Theater that the Chinese communists had found distributing small graphic comics about party ideology to be an effective propagandizing tool, and a fiendish little light bulb flickered on above his head. So, for the very few people who've never even seen one of these little matchbook-looking things, what is a Chick Tract? A Chick Tract is normally a little 3x5-inch booklet of 30 pages or so of black and white comic book style narrative. There are over 150 titles available in this mini book style. Churches and basically whoever can still buy them directly from his website, chick.com.
Wow.
How many 13-year-old boys do you think Googled that only to be severely disappointed?
Well, I just want to know if there's an equivalent on the other side, which is like chicks.com, and some nice Christian lady found stuff that she was definitely not ready for.
Well, apparently someone also claims that he took some of his inspiration from these things that used to be called Tijuana Bibles. Have you ever heard of those?
No.
They were old-timey pornography, like little graphic novel pornography.
Oh, fun.
That were kind of the same size as the very unusually sized Chick Tracts.
Oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm. So, from the communist Chinese and Mexican pornographers, great things come.
Yeah. Well, we already knew that.
Yeah. So you can buy these. You can go to his site and buy these individually or in serious bulk, like tens of thousands at a time, and they're easy to find in the cheap, the penny bins at comic book shops everywhere. They're also everywhere. Believers buy them. They're crazy cheap. They're 17 cents a piece if you buy them individually, and then the price goes down from there. And they buy them. They buy them to leave in public restrooms, libraries, restaurant tables, tips to servers, huh?
Oh my God, you cheap bastards.
Yeah, they
Instead
get them
of?
of course. Christians don't tip. They get them to push through the vents in school lockers, and most super awesomely, to give out rather than candy on Halloween, for the kids.
Oh, maybe I have seen these.
Yeah.
Okay.
Black and white little morality tales.
Maybe. Yeah.
So why is this a shitty thing to give to a trick-or-treater on their super fun night, Uncle Mark? Well, as I described a couple shows back when we talked about the Halloween candy panic, I think ruining the kids' fun with apples, with or without razor blades, is mean and should not be done. and neither should you drop into their joyfully outstretched swag bag a tiny booklet full of sex, murder, ritual sacrifice, pedophilia, explicit depictions of torture, and people burning in lakes of fire.
I don't know. That sounds pretty Halloween-y to me.
It is a very Halloween-y thing, but my God, you should see some of these things. That's not cool. If you that big an asshole, just give him a poison apple.
Yeah.
And this is what chick tracts are. And this is what chick tracts are: horrific, quote, morality tales in which bad people, and I mean bad people, go to eternal glory via a game-changing 3-point shot late in the fourth quarter, and good people go to hell forever for failing to do the equivalent of not saying Mecca Lecca Hi, Mecca Heiny Ho in the moments before death.
Right.
And who did the frothing sadist Jack Chick happily envision burning in hell forever? How much time you got? Here's a partial list. Let's see. We got Muslims, fallen women, loose women, women who take jobs outside the home, mouthy women, women who imagine sex, evolutionists, psychiatrists, psychologists, cool kids, doctors of pretty much every stripe, Buddhists, Hindus, every single letter of the LGBTQI spectrum, people who have the temerity to immigrate to America while failing to be white, rock stars, rock fans, people who like sci-fi movies, anyone with an addiction of any kind, research scientists and epidemiologists, very current, communists, Mormons, obviously, close to 99% of Christians generally, and above all, Catholics. Ave Maria, Gracia Plena, did he fucking hate Catholics.
What about cartoonists? Did he ever...
Probably every other cartoonist, sure.
Yeah, everyone that wasn't him, sure.
In that last way, he's not outside the evangelical mainstream in America. The Pope and his empire have long been despised and distrusted by the evangelical Christian right here, but Chick was really on the sprinting forward edge of that particular hatred. Now, you guys will know, as we've exhaustively examined on this program and probably quite a bit over on TGIA, there are many problems with the Catholic Church.
What?
We could do a podcast about those issues alone, which include things like crusades and conquests and holy wars and cheerleading the enslavement of human beings, your rapes, your genocides, the destruction of numberless cultures, plunder, the selling of prepaid forgiveness for all the aforementioned horrors, causing generations of suffering and poverty by fighting birth control and abortion, and, running a tax-exempt global child rape industry and protection racket from behind the walls of their sovereign train set. Those are all called actual reasons to have disdain for the Catholic Church.
Right.
But not a single one of those even rates as a problem worth mentioning in the mold-compromised mind of Jack Chick. His issue with the Catholic Church is that it's Satan's tabernacle, a rebranded version of an ancient Babylonian religion as outlined in an 1853 screed by American Protestant Reverend Alexander Hislop called The Two Babylons. Yeah. It's hysterical in its anti-Catholicism and a pretty wild conflation of the biblical King Nimrod and some other tidbits of Babylonian mythology. In it, the hyper-masculine, belligerent King Nimrod is fuck buddies with the most beautiful woman who has ever lived, Semiramis. But it's a story from the ancient Near East, so naturally, Semiramis is not only Nimrod's wife, but his mother as well, and claims that the son they bore together was also a reincarnation of Nimrod himself, and Semiramis claimed, after all this inning and outing, that she was still a virgin, proving there are no new ideas. The upshot of this tale is Semiramis is the alpha, the superior of the powerful but brute Nimrod, and coming from this, Chick sees the Catholic veneration of the Queen of Hell, a.k.a. the Virgin Mary. Because of this horrifying divine feminine mythos, Chick alternately referred to the Catholic Church as the whore of Revelation, the mother of harlots, the mother of abominations, and, of course, the whore of Babylon.
Did he say all these things in his tracts?
Yes, absolutely.
Wow. These are for kids, friends. Just
Pretty
so you
much.
know.
They're for kids. And he did have a newsletter that he put out, kind of like Ron Paul used to have that weird libertarian newsletter.
I was a subscriber.
But it's great stuff. Otherwise, I think he gave one interview in his entire life. He was super reclusive. So Chick's hatred of Catholicism was built on the foundation of his seething misogyny and hatred of human sexuality. He also drew comics showing how the final pope would be the actual Antichrist who would usher in one world government which would exterminate every Christian in the world. He credited much of this sizzling, hot-breaking news about the Vatican to a collaborator of his, an alleged disaffected Jesuit turned actual Christian named Alberto Rivera, who these days runs the Antichrist Information Center out of Canoga Park. It's right there by the 405.
Yeah.
So Rivera is a blue ribbon loon who claimed the Vatican, specifically through the Jesuits, started both the Nazi and Communist parties worldwide.
Sure.
Started both world wars, somehow orchestrated, and for some reason, the Jonestown mass suicide homicide, and shot their own Pope, John Paul II. So that's all probably true.
Yeah.
As further evidence of Chick's ironclad sourcing for his frightmarish cartoons, the Broken Cross, an edition of his hippie Satanist punching series of full-size comic books called The Crusader, begins with this acknowledgement. Quote, "My deepest appreciation to Johnny Todd," and for some reason Lance in parentheses, "ex-Grand Druid over 5,000 witches' covens for the authority of the occult information used in this story."
Wow.
5,000.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, you're doing pretty
guy-
well.
That guy's legit.
Yeah, there's good money in being the Grand Druid, I guess. But
Whoever he is that is both
that is both Johnny Todd and Lance. Yeah. So yeah, legit, right? But back to his pathological anti-Catholic hatred. Aside from Catholicism's long and celebrated veneration of women that he apparently detected, he despised the Catholic idea that one could work one's way out of certain damnation by good deeds and works. Chick was like, fuck that noise. It's faith and faith alone by which one is saved. You can shove your good deeds right up your conclave, Guido. So this gets us back to what I said earlier, where bad people make a 3-point shot before the buzzer and go to heaven forever.
Right.
He delights in this fucking loophole approach to salvation. In one of his tracks, The Gunslinger, a hired murderer with countless victims comes to town and is paid by the saloon keeper to kill the local preacher for some reason. An upstanding and law-abiding marshal makes it in time to rescue the preacher, but unbeknownst to him, the preacher convinced the gunslinger to accept Jesus for some reason. So the next day, when the marshal hangs the gunslinger for his many crimes, he goes directly to heaven. But when the honest and upright marshal gets killed by a rattlesnake later that day, he goes to hell. Morality, guys. Yeah.
It's great. It's really good.
In what may be his most problematic tract, Lisa, simply called Lisa, the competition is fierce for the most problematic tract, Chick shows a troubled marriage with a nagging wife, a common theme in his work. She has an outside-of-the-home job and an unemployed husband who has turned to drink. In the stress, the husband, and there is a trigger warning for people here, turns to raping their daughter Lisa.
Oh my God.
It's so crazy.
In a cartoon.
Well, they don't show it, which is amazing because he shows a lot of really graphic stuff. It's amazing they didn't show it. So we find out the neighbor somehow knows about it and wants in on it.
What?
Then the family doctor admits to knowing about it, but has done nothing, except that now he invites the father to accept Jesus, which he immediately does, another common theme in Chick's works, and feels super duper good. He goes home to find the nagging wife, who admits she's known all along about his raping Lisa and having invited the neighbor to as well, and that in her stress, she's been abusing Lisa as well.
Oh my God.
So this is unreal. This kind of explains like QAnon, right? And the
interesting.
ease the evangelicals sort of have in believing these things that are just like outlandish and we would never accept in a million years, right? As being true.
That just like the whole community knew this was going on and we're like, meh.
Yeah, but if you grew up or these were circulating around and you just had this view of the world, like of course QAnon makes
for sure.
sense.
Oh my God. That's a terrifyingly good point, Frank.
And it's a dismal worldview, right?
Like how
to hold these things.
No wonder he never wanted to leave his house. You know, like if this is what he thought was out there.
Yeah, true. Yeah, that's true. Maybe this is what made him reclusive. So So he comes home, he finds the nagging wife. She admits she's been abusing Lisa too. So the husband invites her to accept Jesus, which she immediately does, see? And they hug and have a laugh, knowing everything is just fine. In the final frames, they call Lisa, who appears from the bedroom clutching a teddy bear, and we see her for the first time, and she is 6 or 7 at best.
Oh my God.
Mom smilingly tells her everything is fine now. They won't hurt her anymore. The end. All's well that ends well, right, guys?
You know what? Nothing could go wrong now.
Yeah. Lisa's
perfect.
apparently fine, or who gives a fuck?
Did he know
Right.
that he was actually writing Christian tracks? Like, like, did he think that he was like a pulp horror? Like,
Right?
like
Well, he was
author?
really... He definitely understood using... he was terrorizing people,
Yeah,
essentially.
yeah.
Right.
Right. So in a way, he was a horror writer.
Yeah.
Right. So Lisa caused such an uproar that they no longer carry it on chick.com. And it should be noted that his work is banned in Canada. Like
Really?
you cannot distribute it in Canada because it's so hateful
Good
and
for
so
them.
fucked up like this. And like nagging wives and sudden conversions, violence against very young children is also a recurring theme. In the horrific Somebody Loves Me, a horribly neglected and abused boy of at most 5 is beaten so severely by his father that he soon dies in a wooden crate in an inner city alley in a rainstorm.
What?
But not before a heroic Christian missionary lady leaves him a card. Not a sandwich or a ride to the hospital, a fucking card that says Jesus loves you. Then an angel flies him to heaven to meet the loving God that created him in order to suffer such horror. The end. Much morality. Right, fellas? So, in addition to his sadistic portrayal of all sorts of violence and his misogyny, Chick's attitude towards people of color, immigrants, and queer people is about what you'd expect from a white American Christian fanatic in his 70s and 80s. Not too evolved, would be putting it very generously. His portrayals of Jews and Arabs rival those you might find in newspapers in the Germany of the 1930s.
Right.
Author and comics critic Daniel Rayburn has a massive breakdown of the art and philosophical horror of Jack Chick in his publication called The Imp. That's well worth a read for anyone wanting to dig deeper into the abysmal rat's nest of Chick's mind. I kind of want to close with a quote from that. Rayburn writes, "He's an American original only because he's synthesized every half-baked, fear-based philosophy since rebel Protestant zealots colonized, milked, and raped the fresh green breast of this new world. Chick has dedicated his life to fighting Jesuits, Druids, Shriners, Illuminati, Satanists, vampires, rock music, sodomizers, and pedophiles. Appropriately, he proudly claims that his contributing writers and consultants are themselves former Jesuits, Druids, Shriners, Illuminati, Satanists, vampires, rock musicians, sodomizers, and pedophiles.
Oh my God.
His comics are a propagandistic conflation of American opposites that I can only term hardcore Protestant pornography. Each embossed with that hallmark of Cold War advertising techniques, the unique selling proposition, in this case, the blood of Jesus washes you clean." So when you dig around online, you can find countless stories from people who were traumatized by Chick's work. The fear of hell, that is just a base level trauma in the American Christian landscape, found rocket fuel in this weird, often terrible little comic books. And it's obvious that was the intention, to terrify readers, especially young ones, into conforming to his own very specific version of a hateful and sadistic Christianity. And just based on the numbers, he appears to have been pretty successful. So despite all the pains to love, the golden rule, and forgiveness, what lies at the cult of Jesus is murder, blood magic, and an insidious view of the world that this life is and should be pain, especially for one's enemies. The cult of Jesus can certainly inspire some greatness, like, say, Martin Luther King Jr. or Desmond Tutu. There's probably a couple more. Give me a minute. But just as often, and maybe more so, all the same texts and words create monsters like our own American Christian terrorist, Jack Chick. So that's the loves and lives of Jack Chick, guys.
It's amazing. I've heard definitely about these things being dropped in kids' trick or treat bags or whatever. the thought, and some of them are just supposed to be cute little things. I'm looking at one right now that's called The Little Ghost, and it's all about like the evils of Halloween, which is delightfully ironic.
Yeah.
But man, the fact that the same guy, will market The Little Ghost one and it comes packaged in exactly the same way and with the same kind of artwork as these more like utterly horrifying ones, and that a child could pick those up thinking that they're seeing something that's intended for them and read it and see murder and child molestation and rape and all of this other stuff.
Yeah.
It's horrifying.
Yeah, I mean, if you go to his website and just look up, or you probably just Google it, someone to love me, Jack Chick. It's a wordless comic, right? It's just so children don't even have to know how to read to understand the comic, and it's horrific. Like this father just neglects and beats this child and ends up killing him, and he goes to meet the Jesus who loves him, but did fuck all for him in life, right? So yeah, it's pretty demented stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
happy after Halloween, guys.
Yeah. What a delightful time we've had.
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
All right.
Let's move on.
Well, Uncle Dan,
Hey there.
I'm just now realizing that we may have accidentally put together a real bummer of a show.
What do you mean?
Well-
I think it's all. Look, you're talking about cartoons.
A sadistic
That's fun.
cartoonist, yeah.
Everybody loves that.
Yeah.
I think we need to bring it down a little bit.
Oh yeah, okay. So we should dial down from
I've
the
got
joyousness
the
of
perfect
Jack.
topic,
Chick.
guys.
Yeah.
So of course our beloved Uncle Frank is here from across the way at Thank God I'm Atheist to fill in for that lazy so-and-so Douglas.
Who's definitely not still in jail. It's definitely not that.
Yep.
So nobody worry.
We're not even close to our Patreon goal of $250,000 for the week. That might help with that. So let's come on, people, step up. But Frank has a certain expertise from something he's researched in the recent past, and it's very germane to the kind of things we talk about here on this show. So we thought we should finally broach this subject and talk about it.
Yeah. Well, first, thanks. I mean, I've already been chiming in and everything, but thanks for having me on the show.
Glad you're here.
We're so happy to have
great.
you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, how to start with this? Basically, I'm going to be talking about the topic of teen suicide.
Yeah.
The highly uplifting and entertaining topic of teen suicide, and specifically about how it sort of plays out in the state of Utah,
Right.
and how you can't escape, the Mormon Church's potential role in sort of us having incredibly high teen suicide rates. For anybody who doesn't know, which most listeners probably don't know, Utah is always in about the top 5 states as far as the percentage of our teenagers, or I guess you should say youth aged 10 to 17. They kind of go down that low in age.
Wow.
Who end up take their own lives.
Right.
And it's obviously an incredibly complex issue, and I guess a little bit of background. The reason that I kind of know a lot of this off the top of my head is because a few years ago I made a documentary for our local PBS affiliate, Channel 7 here in Utah, PBS Utah, I guess is what they're really called, and made a documentary about teen suicide, specifically because of this incredibly high teen suicide rate. And so, you produce a piece of media in the state of Utah that's going on to a TV station that our state legislature
Hates already.
Hates and already controls a bit of their budget. There's some sensitivities that you immediately have to take as far as your approach to it.
Right.
You can't come out swinging on the Mormon part of the story.
Right. Which is it's telling a joke without a punchline, right?
Right.
Yeah. what is
tell us,
interesting about
rewrite
it,
Moby Dick without ever mentioning Moby Dick, essentially.
Right. Yeah, without that depressing whale in the middle of it.
Without the whale subplot.
well, and what is interesting is the issue turns out to be a little bit more complicated than I figured going into it, and much more complicated than what was getting. Whenever I told a friend or an acquaintance that I was working on this, my circle of people, mostly ex-Mormon people, right, immediately go, oh yeah, Mormon church, string them up, go after them, right?
Right.
And what's interesting is that there are, while Utah, and this was my moment when I kind of realized, oh wait, this is a really tricky issue. Really tricky issue, because it's not just Utah that has a really high suicide rate in this region. It's the entire Intermountain West. And you could look at that and go, well, still the Mormons, right?
Yeah, it's still in the Mormon sphere.
Right. But it's also Colorado has a high teen suicide rate. And, Idaho, which, obviously has a big Mormon population and everything, but up into Wyoming and Nevada. And so when you start to dig into it, it's like there are researchers at the University of Utah who are very interested in this topic as well. And one in particular has really started to put together this connection between life at high altitude and sort of a prevalence for depression or other sort of mental illnesses, sort of any kind of
I'd
chemical
heard that
imbalance.
before, and I didn't know how much stock to put in that.
I would put a fair amount into it. This one particular researcher, he does PMRI research. That's the sort of, you can watch an MRI in action, right? You can watch chemicals moving about the brain. And so he does research specifically on, he performs it on rats, of course. Right. And he deprives the rats of oxygen in order to...
What an asshole.
In order to simulate... He doesn't kill them, but he simulates or causes hypoxia, which is shortness of... or the condition of not having enough oxygen in your blood, right?
Right.
And so he's simulating... And he's not going like crazy and suffocating them. He's trying to simulate just... high altitude. Yeah. And so he'll put them in these chambers, and he does like sea level, oxygen. And then he sort of reduces the amount of oxygen. And I don't know exactly how you test to see if a rat is depressed, but he has,
well, it's probably like dopamine or something, right?
The
Dopamine levels or.
Yeah. And I think he actually did talk about like, I don't think we have him on camera talking about this, but like that the rats do have very specific activities that they like to engage in, right? And that they will lose interest in those activities, that manifesting a very common sign of depression, which is a loss of interest in your hobbies, right? And there were other things. It's
and they get into like goth stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. Their wardrobe changes. But no, so he's been doing this research, and his whole premise is that depression is essentially a metabolic condition, right? And that if you could then reverse that effect by he's doing research with creatine specifically, right? Where which you can just get at GNC, and like young like bodybuilder types, right? We'll take this supplement, right?
Right.
And it ends up increasing the oxygen level in the blood, and they have really promising early research that shows that this is potentially a really good treatment for depression at altitude. But of course, like I said, it's an incredibly complex issue, and it's not...
I hear what you're saying. What you're saying is that the church is off the hook entirely.
See, I think they aren't, because they chose this high altitude destination, didn't they?
Oh, the Lord led us here for a reason.
Yeah.
No, obviously, one thing, like the church does a really good job of starting us down the road of feeling excluded or a loss of community, right? If you don't fit in the Mormon, if you're not perfectly sort of Mormon,
Right.
you're excluded if you're part of this Utah community, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you don't come running to Salt Lake and make new friends, right?
Yeah.
And so the way that I see it is that it's just kind of this web of different things, because there's also research that shows that activity in a religious setting is actually it's actually
Can be
beneficial.
positive,
Yeah, it's beneficial for your mental health. But the key to that is if you fit, right? If you if it is working for you, then it is working for you, right? And you get all of those protective factors that come from involvement in religion, right? But the moment that you're no longer a good fit, and all it has to be is you're growing up gay, right? And excuse me, I grew up gay. Mark, you grew up gay in the LDS
Yeah, we
church.
both went through. We both went through knowing we were in an out group before we were placed in that out group.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
but now
by
I
our
feel
in-group.
like I'm in an out group because I didn't grow up gay. I feel like you guys are excluding me.
Well, but your
But it
favorite
has a
color is
toll.
purple, which is a strange choice. So,
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
I'm mostly gay, except for that whole liking, being attracted to guys thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but
All the other bits, sure.
it takes a serious toll though on a young person.
Definitely.
And there's a lot. So I don't know that there's something specific. When we lay this responsibility at the feet of the Mormon Church, right? It's not something that is completely unique to the Mormons, and I think that we should remember it's conservative religious communities across the board who are not cool. Well, to be honest, conservative religious communities, because it doesn't matter if maybe one is like cool on one issue or not. You always have to fit their perfect little mold in order to be a good member of their community. And so
I think, Frank, if I can interrupt, I think what makes Utah kind of unique is it is unlike most states, it is so hegemonic in a monolithic religious group, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that definitely would exacerbate the whole thing. And then there's all of the other issues that can lead to a young person wanting to just no longer be and bullying is obviously a huge one, but and then what was the other one? We did in the film specifically look at this one group of Mormon mothers. That's how I kind of worked it in. I found this group of Mormon mothers who were supportive of their LGBTQ kids. You've probably talked about them on this show.
Are they the Mama Dragons?
The Mama Dragons. Yeah.
I don't know that have we addressed the Mama Dragons?
I don't think so.
I don't think we have.
Well, there's this awesome group.
We don't talk about the good guys very much on this show, Frank.
Okay, well, I'll bring in some news about the good guys. This is a group of Mormon mothers who, against the teachings essentially of the church, have decided that they're going to make their child their priority, right? It's not the church, it's their child, right? And they're going to love their child through this adjustment into this identity that they've come and told them about, right? And so in the film we have a young trans woman, and we talk to the Mama Dragons and we get some perspective from them. And now the not that this is specific to Utah, of course, but the trans community faces a suicide rate that's 10 times the national average. And so when you look at the idea of acceptance of a person for who they are, right? And the value that has in mental health, and that person's desire to keep on living, we know the challenges that the trans community faces on that issue, right? And so it starts to become really clear the value of a mother just embracing their child for whoever they turn out to be.
Oh my God! Of course, I think that for a lot of us, I don't know how specifically, our experiences match up, Frank, but my home was not a safe space for me,
Right.
Either. Church wasn't. If anything was, weirdly, school was, because I was so successfully in the closet that nobody knew, right? Or I told myself nobody knew. But but home wasn't a safe space, and if I had if either parent or both of them had been like loving in that way, my life would have been completely different.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, the thing that the Mom and Dragons are doing, and why it's so, what this is telling about the Mormon community is that it's so revolutionary, right?
Right.
That they
just
would
accepting your child for who they are is an act of revolution.
And women leading it.
Exactly.
Doubly revolutionary in Mormonism. Yeah.
I hadn't actually thought of that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
But you're totally right. And so there's a lot of things that you can start to kind of line up, but there's no real that's the silver bullet that if the Mormons just changed that one thing, right? Or if we change this one thing in the state of Utah, maybe that's a better way of phrasing it. That all of a sudden we would our suicide rate would go down. There are other things to lay at the feet of life in the Intermountain West that could explain the regional problem, right? Access to firearms being a major issue, right?
Interesting.
BYU football just consistently sucks, and that's got to take a toll on people.
But no, I mean, we have a vibrant gun culture, right, in the Intermountain West.
That's a nice way of putting it.
And so that's obviously a factor, and the state's done a lot. Actually, surprisingly, Utah has done a lot for for funding trigger locks. And trying to get trigger locks into the home. And so, I mean, they're working on the issue in a lot of different ways. One of the cool programs that we looked at in the documentary was this thing called, it was called Hope for Utah at the time. It's probably expanded, because I know that it was a hit. What it is that it's this program that goes into the schools and they identify the kids at the school who the other kid, they basically do a survey of all the student body.
You told me about this. I thought this was so brilliant.
Yeah. And they take this survey of all the kids, and they have the kids identify who would you approach if you had a problem, or who do you think would be a good kid to approach? One of your
among
peers.
your peers.
Yeah. If you had something going on in your life and you just needed somebody to talk to, right? And invariably at any school that they do this, a set of names just bubbles to the surface, right? Because
like a lot of kids are picking the same.
Yeah, they're just like Amy over there and Jimmy over there, right?
Probably Braden. If it's Utah.
McKaylee is really popular.
McKaylee and Braden.
Yeah.
But it's just clear, and it's obvious, right? These are those wonder kids who just they're smart, but they're also just emotionally
caring,
intelligent kids, right? And so then they take that group of kids and they invite them into this program where they train them on how to respond to their peers if their peers start confiding in them about thinking about suicide, right? Or just depression in general, right? And then they also put a social worker in the actually it was a social worker, a therapist in the school. So they had a full-time staffer who the kids could just go and knock on his door, right? And just have somebody to talk to who was really safe.
Do you know what makes me crazy? Why don't they? No, okay. I wanted, before I preface that with something, is that we said something about school counselors last week or the week before, Dan, that got a couple emails that we said they were kind of useless. And I think in our experience they were, because they were part of the Utah Mormon Snitch Network. Right. And really, to me, in my experience, they didn't do any counseling. It was just like, here's how you fill out a form for college, right?
Yeah.
You didn't understand them as available to help you in crisis.
Yeah.
So and I know they do that now, but it's amazing to me, Frank, that this isn't already a thing.
Well,
that there isn't that person in schools.
And I think though that school counselor, it was such a terrible name, right, for that role, because you're right. It was about getting advice for your future. It wasn't about like, having somebody who was a safe person to talk to about whatever was troubling you, right?
Yeah.
And so they haven't done away with those folks. They're still at the school, right?
Yeah.
They've just staffed an additional person. And it was part of and the school I'm specifically thinking about is down in Alpine, which is a very wealthy Mormon area.
Yeah, extremely Mormon, right? Probably.
Yeah. But even then,
north
the
of
school
80%.
district, the school district wasn't the one funding the therapist. It was part of, I think it was Valley Mental Health, surprisingly.
Oh,
that did it.
interesting.
But nonetheless, and this would be typical of me, right? And sort of the way that I see the world is that, as much as I would love it to be the Mormons exclusively, right? But I desperately wish I could just point my finger and blame them. I think that it has to be like all of our fingers pointing in all sorts of different directions.
Totally. Well,
right.
So on that subject, I want to kind of go back to what you were saying earlier about the altitude thing.
Oh yeah.
So after the Mormon Church, which it does on the regular, comes out with a particularly hurtful anti-LGBT policy, LGBTQ policy, youth suicide statistically and self-harm goes up.
Yeah.
Now, our altitude didn't change.
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
That's true.
Yeah.
And I think that's that multifaceted thing, right? Which is, of course, the Mormon Church has a role in this, and of course, they need to be more careful about what they say, right? And of course, they should reform and become loving and accepting, and embrace the gay kids, right?
Yeah.
Of course they should. And it would save lives. It absolutely would. But that's absolutely right, Mark. Like,
yeah,
I think that
it's
the truth
fine
of the
to
matter
blame
is
them for the stuff that is identifiable. Right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And the thing is that, people are depressed all over the world in any place. It may be that we have a higher instance of it because of the altitude and other factors, but what you can do in those situations is not be a dick, because, especially in a place where people are going to be more prone to depression and more prone to, or less able to modulate their own emotions and help themselves. The last thing anyone needs is to be made to feel less than, is to be made to feel bad.
Yeah.
By the people that should be loving them the most.
Yeah, but
that's the situation that we have here, is that any like increased depression is going to be made worse by the fact that their parents are not accepting and
their peers. And that's the problem of a monoculture, like a lot of Utah communities are religiously and socially and culturally, is that you may not even be aware that you're doing that.
Right.
Because it is so in the oxygen and the bloodstream. This is just how we are towards these people. This is just, and so I think that, Frank, I think you talked about, when we talked about this a long time ago, like suicide clusters, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And, these schools all of a sudden have like a fairly significant number of kids killing or attempting to kill themselves at once. And it's a multifaceted problem, but also it's this monoculture problem where you can't even really begin to examine how to get at the problem when you don't even understand, your place in it.
Right.
Yeah, and the clusters is an interesting thing because it's done a couple things that can be counterproductive to the whole topic of suicide prevention, which is it makes people feel like they can't talk about it, right? Like, because all of a sudden, oh my God, this kid who everybody loved. This is I should actually get to this topic in a second. The kid that seemed to have everything going for them, right? who was a good fit in their community. But so here you have this kid, and they end up taking their life, and we need to shut up about this. We can't give the other kids permission, right? Essentially, and that's not, from my understanding, the way that it works. Although there is a little bit of, I think there might be a little bit of the permission thing, right? Where it's like, well, if he couldn't do it, right, how am I going to do it, right?
Right.
But what you need instead is tons of talk. You need everybody, all hands on deck, within reason, of course, being willing to talk about mental health and to talk about it in term and to take the stigma of not being able to talk about it, right? Away from the whole thing.
Because what a kid who's worried about, if a kid sees the popular kid who took his own life and says, well, if he couldn't make
he had
it,
everything.
Yeah.
then how
everybody
could
loved
I
him.
possibly?
Yeah.
Exactly.
If that kid is shut down from talking, that's going to be the only conversation in their mind, is the one that that negativity in their own brain is creating.
Right.
And the only counter to that is to create open space for that person to be able to talk about their own feelings openly and freely, and to hear other points of view and perspectives.
Because that kid, that type A kid, whatever, popular kid who took their own life, we covered that in the film as well. Because it accounts for about 15% of teen suicides. It comes from this. It's like everybody's super shocked, right? I mean, it's shocking when anybody takes their life, but it's this kid who's like, maybe they're like a really good athlete and popular and good student, and everything just seems like it's going right for them. But there's this crazy phenomenon where oftentimes that specific teen, everything's basically gone right for them so far, right? And
when something goes wrong,
it takes just oftentimes such a minor thing in their life to go wrong that something snaps in their head, and they've never practiced at plan B or plan C or whatever.
I think I know this kid. This is he survived, correct?
Yes.
And he is extraordinary, and you would never have guessed.
Never in a million years, right? And so, he's in the film, and he tells his story, and the things, the two things that pushed him over the edge. He explains it as the effortless sort of, brilliance of him, right? was sort of like was starting to wear off as like school started to get harder, as in his junior and senior year, right?
Right.
Where you actually kind of finally had to start studying brilliant kid, right?
Right.
And so that was kind of starting to catch up with him a little bit. And then his girlfriend broke up with him, right? And then a couple days later, he wrecks the family car.
Oh.
And it was within 24 hours of wrecking the car that he had a plan, and he executed it.
Yeah, and he was he'd never had anything bad happen to him until then.
Yeah.
And so two things at once, and he just was ill-equipped to handle it.
And so
this is why it was a defense mechanism for me to fail so much as a young person. I did a really good job, and that's why I'm the success I am today.
But there was another kid who unfortunately actually did take his life, who his story was really similar. We interviewed his mom and sister, and he was like this lacrosse star, right? And there are colleges out there that I guess will give scholarships for lacrosse. And he somehow, something just, I think it was maybe his GPA just wasn't quite high enough, or whatever it was. There was just this combination of things. He got into the school he really wanted to go to, but they didn't have a scholarship for him, right? And so he ends up having to kind of start looking for a plan B. And he doesn't really, the plan B wasn't that bad, right? but he doesn't really love it. It's just a different school and no scholarship. And he's just like, he had it all figured out in his head that he had to have a scholarship, right? He just absolutely, he couldn't have his parents pay for his education. His parents were fairly well off. They could have afforded paying for his education, but he just had it. Nope. They can't pay for it. And over the course of like, it was like 48, 72 hours, he hatched a plan and unfortunately succeeded. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, you're terrorizing us.
Well, I think that,
but it's like, and so the point is that parents out there who might be listening, it is a terrifying thing, right? For a parent to think about even their seemingly perfect kid, right, who isn't safe from this topic, right?
Right.
This is you just have to have the conversations, right? And you have to be aware of what's going on. And
a lot of conversations.
Yeah. And be aware of like the fact that like they're probably not going to come to you, right? And if they're having a really hard time with something and they're not used to it, right, it might be a good time just to check in and see how they're doing, right?
And I think this is, and we can wrap it up kind of with this because this is me getting my barb in, is that this is something I can lay again at the feet of the Mormon culture, and it's definitely not exclusive to Mormon culture, but it's a huge issue with it, is it's, in Mormon culture, it's not okay to not be okay.
Right.
Oh,
that's true.
I think that that's a huge thing that, like, when you talked about these clusters of, suicide clusters where everybody just kind of shuts up about it and, watching the captain of the football team take his own life and that sort of thing. Like, we've got to kind of change. You got to check in, especially with our younger friends and our children and just let them know it's okay not to be okay.
Yeah.
And they can talk about it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Excuse me. And then,
are you okay, Frank?
I am okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's okay not to be.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But I also think that it's really important to just acknowledge the thing that, or the fact that I was a documentary film producer on this. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychologist. I don't have like all the right answers here. And what's also really important in any discussion in sort of media settings about suicide is that we share the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, which is 1-800-273-8255. That is if you call that number, like and I'm speaking directly to the listener, if you're thinking about suicide, you call the number. It's free, it's confidential, and it's also local. It's a national hotline. They've got offices all over the country, and that's where your call gets routed to. So you're able to talk to somebody who might understand your local situation a little bit better too. So, and it's confidential again. So,
and we'll put that in the show notes as well.
That's great. Yeah.
So,
yep. And we also, on our help page, if you go to our website, there's a link to a help page, and it has international numbers, and it also has information for the Trevor Project.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So we'll include that.
Wonderful.
Excellent. Well, thanks, Uncle Frank. That was
very enlightening.
It's a super important discussion. So let's move on.
Thank you so much.
Uncle Mark.
Hello.
It's so nice of Uncle Frank to be joining us on the show, but I've kicked him out for this discussion because I don't want him taking a cut.
No, he's not getting any of our dosh.
Because we got some folks to thank because this show is free, guaranteed free forever for everyone.
Yep.
But if you like it and you want to show it, you can give us some of your money, and that would make us very, very happy.
Look, more money equals more show. I don't know why that's a hard thing to understand.
Yeah. More money for us equals less problems for you.
That's right.
So I think that's the math works out on that.
If you got 99 problems, we don't want the How to Heretic to be one of them.
That's right. So we owe some thanks to some people. Thanks so much to William, to Deadeye Nick, and to Ben who are all this week's best people. And thanks also to anyone and everyone who has rated the show or written a review of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Because you guys are amazing. You can do that at your iTunes. You can do it at your Stitcher.
Your Spotify's.
Just throw us some stars, baby. 5 or die. It's the way to go.
Yeah.
You don't owe it to us, but you should give it to us anyway.
But we want you to feel incredible guilt until you do it.
Until you do it. It's only fair.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. Well, let's keep going.
Yoo-hoo!
Well, I could get used to saying this. Well, Uncle Frank,
Yes,
how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Uncle Mark?
I'm fine. I'm fine, and I'm okay. And thank you for checking in with that with me. But there's something that in fact all 4 established uncles of the How to Heretic have in common, and or rather don't have in common.
Right, and that is anal. No, wait.
Well,
Sorry,
yeah,
no,
nope, that's not true.
Different thing.
I'm pretty sure. I don't know where that was going, but I can tell it's not true right off the bat. So, and I think Dan's going to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. Look, this podcast, Uncle Frank, you know this though you haven't been here. You've sat in on every single one of our recordings, so you know this.
Indeed.
As an understudy,
just kibitzing on the
Just an
side.
observer. I'm just
Right?
observing.
Yeah, exactly. But
court
this podcast,
mandated observer.
This show is largely for and about heretics. And I wanted to talk about one of the great heresies in our modern society. I mean, sure, not conforming to religious expectations is horrifying enough just on its own. But once we've established that, the strictures and arbitrary rules of religion are nonsense, we're suddenly at liberty to make even more heretical decisions. Bare shoulders, alcohol, dancing. Once you realize there's no angry magic daddy watching everything you do, who knows what horrors you'll try or not try. So today I want to talk about a heresy that some of us partake in that is rarely spoken of. It can be such a tattoo. It can be such a taboo. Dan, read your own thing. That it's only talked about in hushed, piteous tones, whispered about in somber sadness behind backs. Today we're talking about the horrors of childlessness. Yeah, terrifying, you guys. Now, it can be a particularly tricky thing to discuss because a lot of people have very deep feelings about this topic. There are parents who might get a little defensive and feel like their choices are under attack. There are people who want children but are unable or are trying, but it's been a rough road. And so this might be a very sore subject for them. So I want to start by saying that this discussion is about celebrating whatever choice someone makes.
Yes.
And whatever life someone leads. Now, if you have kids or you want kids, that's great. Good on you. We honor that decision. To some,
Really?
Well, somebody's got to make somebody's.
well, 2 out of 3 of us honor that decision.
I
Frank's
just
a
don't-
little grumpy.
I just don't celebrate all of them. If you know
Well,
what I
that's
mean.
true.
Because it's like,
and it's not always a good decision to do. So we're going to talk about that. And
Okay.
we're going to talk about making it an actual decision as opposed to just falling into a default, which is something that that can be really problematic, especially here in here and now, in this time and place, meaning the U.S. and probably elsewhere too. Because look, the Abrahamic religions, especially, but also other religions, I haven't looked as deeply into it. Procreation is deeply ingrained. It's that whole
Yes.
multiply and replenish the earth thing. And the more fundamentalist you get about it, the more people you're expected to make. I'm thinking of Mormons, yes, for whom 9 kids is not out of the ordinary. The quiverful movement in evangelicalism,
Yeah.
where you're just supposed to keep fucking and let God decide when the babies stop.
Right.
Or the uterus falls
Orthodox Judaism, where, rabbinical pressure takes the form of something like this quote, which I found, which is, "For anyone who adds a soul to the Jewish people is considered as if he built an entire world." Well,
Wow.
that's quite a mindfuck. And the pressure is particularly brought to bear on women, as we all know. Mormonism, conservative Christianity, all of these things, a woman's only power, their only job, especially in Mormonism, is to have children. Without that, it's almost like, what's even the point of womanhood? But now that we've left religion behind, the choice as to whether or not to have children or, is now freed from all of that bullshit. God ain't got shit to say about it. And now you get to think about it as just a matter of what works best for you. So I just wanted us, one straight guy and two gay fellas, to discuss how to think about the child thing in that context. Because here's the thing, and I want this to be a little more freeform than a lot of our discussions get. I'm in a marriage. We're a straight couple, and from the jump, the second we started to get together, the pressure started building for us to have children. Externally, right.
Like,
internally, we talked about it, and we were never, we weren't settled on it for years. It was just sort of one of those things where it was like, maybe, ? We don't know. But man, externally, it started pouring down. And, Andrea had it really hard from her first marriage as well. So I have some experience with it.
Yeah.
Again, it's worse for women, or it's more intense for women. And it's just a very interesting thing. So I wanted to discuss, first of all, the fact that it's a default. So in our society, when you think about the Norman Rockwell painting of American society, having kids is what a family looks like. And I think that we can all attest, we three, to the fact that that's not the case. Like, there are plenty of good, happy, familial environments that don't have children involved.
Yeah. There are not a huge amount of upsides to being born queer in a highly religious society.
Right.
But one of them is, once you're known to be queer, there's a lot less pressure, wouldn't you say, Frank? That we
to have kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's kind of small fish for my parents, right? At this point, they're concerned about far more, than whether or not I'm going to have a kid. But I don't know. Did you ever want a kid, Mark? Did you ever think about having kids?
I think Jesse and I probably batted it around once or twice when we first got together a million years ago, but there was never any urge. And I want to just make sure I say I like children. Like I enjoy being in the company of children. I think they're a lot of fun. I also don't, but being an uncle in real life, not just on the show.
Right.
But, when you're you get the upsides without a lot of the downsides when you're not the actual parent. You're not changing as many diapers and disciplining and all that stuff and, hockey practice and all that shit. So
I was wondering more just sort of growing up in a specific culture where the idea, it's just like Dan said, it's a default.
It seemed like I was going to have to at some point.
And
yeah.
Didn't you imagine, I personally had images of my adult life, right? And being a father was like a part of it. And there was and I knew I was gay from a fairly young age and had accepted it about myself on a certain level in my teens, right? Not fully, but I was aware of it and I accepted that fact. And when I fully accepted my sexuality and I was coming out, I remember there was a moment of mourning about not having a family. Right? I was giving up on something, right?
Well, Okay, so you just brought up a thing that I want to touch on really quickly, and that is that I think that our society, this is so ingrained that the language around children, this language of having a family is having children. I think we need to move away from that, and I'm going to ask our listeners to consider never referring to that being the thing of having a family. Having children is its own thing. But I had
starting a family.
Right, exactly. There was a moment fairly recently where Andrea and I were visiting Andrea's sister and brother-in-law who wanted to have more children. They have one child, they wanted to have more, and they found out that they basically probably can't have more than the one. The one's kind of a miracle baby, and they're just unable to have more. And Andrea's mother was with us, and this is one of those things where it's so default that people don't even consider that they need to think about these things. But Andrea's mom was there with her childless daughter by choice, and her daughter who wanted to have more and is unable to, and just sort of off the top of her head recalled that her dad had said some pithy quote about one child is nice, but two kids makes a family.
Oh God.
And it was just this thing. It didn't even occur to her how hurtful that kind of a thing could be to say to, a whole group of people who, I'm sorry, we have families. You know what I mean? Like Andrea and I make a delightful family. And I don't feel that we're incomplete at all. So I feel like, that there, even the language betrays the bias in our society right now, which is interesting because the stats are, it's not that uncommon. In Canada and the U.S. and Australia, most of Western Europe, 15% of women reach the age of 45 with no children.
How many?
So 15.
15, okay.
So, I mean, it's still rare. It's certainly uncommon, but there it is. And, in other countries, places like Germany and Switzerland, apparently it's upward of 25%.
Right.
So fully a quarter.
Yeah.
So, this is something that is a genuine, a significant part of society and a totally valid choice. I think a lot of, but there are a lot of myths that go around that are sort of haunting the specter of parenthood. A lot of people think that parenthood is the only thing that can make you happy or fulfilled. A lot of people think that life without kids is somehow incomplete. There's going to be tension between you and your friends if they have kids and you don't. There's a lot of sort of myths that happen.
I would think that is all coming from people who have children.
Well, yeah.
And, it is obviously such an intense experience to, however you acquire them, hopefully by legal methods, but whether out the old, poop shoot or through adoption or whatever, it's an incredibly intense, all encompassing experience from birth to whenever they kind of become independent. And then it doesn't end there. Right, they're still in your life if you've not been a total shitbag about it.
Right.
So I think for them, it's impossible to imagine a life without that. Right.
Right. Which is fine. Like that's totally understandable. The problem is that that people don't imagine what it might be like for people who don't have kids, and so they don't understand that they may be bringing to bear pressure that's unwelcome and unwanted. And also, saying, like I said, saying things that could be incredibly hurtful to people, that don't need to be said, that aren't, you know what I mean?
Right.
And it turns out that actually parenthood isn't necessarily the be all and the end all. There are a series of studies that have come out that point out that parents actually are having children. Actually, you lose happiness when you do that. Now, you may gain other things back, a sense of meaning and fulfillment, but parents are according to a lot of studies, less happy than non-parents, which is an interesting thing. By the same token, non-parents can be fully fulfilled. It may not be quite as easy to find that fulfillment because a lot of people, once you have kids, it's very evident, it's very plain that needs to be a huge focus of your life. So you have that meaning, you have that focus. Mm-hmm. And those of us who don't have children have to find our own thing to focus our attentions on and to focus our sense of meaning, to hang our sense of meaning on. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean that it's not possible. And it's interesting how many accounts I read of people who believed and were told that they could never feel a true sense of accomplishment if they never had children. So that's part of the discussion. The other part of the discussion is that people will tell the voluntarily childless that they're being selfish, which I think is amazing because it's not like most of the parents that I know were thinking of the world when they had their kids.
No,
they were there to serve. They had kids because they wanted kids. That's selfish also.
Well, and it's also, I'm sorry, is there such a thing as preemptive selfishness?
Right.
Like you're being selfish to people who don't exist yet.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
That's absurd.
Right. Because here's the thing. We need to abandon, when we left religion, we get to leave the idea that there are, that there's a need to repopulate the earth. We're populated. We're doing good.
We're good.
We literally can let that one go completely.
The earth is about to fucking die. We're good.
Right. Yeah. The Mormons have this amazing notion that there are spirit children waiting to be brought into the world.
Yeah.
Just hovering around and waiting. We can let go of that entirely. All of those ideas that somehow there's any responsibility to have children, I think we can let it go. There's no responsibility. It doesn't help anybody to have children. And as a matter of fact, I hate to say it, right now, producing more consumers in a time when overpopulation may actually become a problem is something that should be considered.
We're way past overpopulation being a problem.
Right.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I want to do is flip the script a little bit or at least talk about how we can change the conversation surrounding children, because I think, and this is just me talking, and again, I celebrate the parents in my life. I have lots of friends who have kids. I love their kids. Their kids love me. I'm a great uncle. Yeah. I mean, it's not for nothing. It's very funny because people love to turn that on me and say, you should have kids. Look how good you are with kids. And I'm like, no, I'm good with kids because I get to give them back.
Yeah.
I give them all of this fun energy. And then, when I'm beat, it's like, okay, now go find your mom.
Yeah.
So that's why I can be good with kids. But the thing is that, I had a point that I was getting to, which was, I will get to it. That I wanted to talk about the fact that in the religious world, it's default to have children. I think it should probably be the societal default not to have children. And that if you want to have children, great, but that should be something that you think deeply about. Because as it stands, those, people who choose not to have children are called to account for that, and they are asked to defend their choice frequently.
Yeah.
It should probably go the other way, because the truth is that if I don't have children, nobody else's life is deeply affected by that.
Right.
But the second you have a child, that little person's life is deeply affected by the fact that you brought it into this world. You have made a thing that is going to have a whole trajectory, and that is a much bigger deal.
And probably
So-
not a good trajectory, to be honest. Like,
Well, I mean, everybody's miserable.
Statistically,
seriously,
statistically, it's not necessarily great.
you're dropping a little bomb into the world, right?
Right.
And like, try as you might, and there's so many great parents out there, right?
But there's-
try to
there's
instill
so many
good
terrible ones.
values
Yeah.
and build empathy in their children and teach them how to exist in this world and do it in a thoughtful way. The vast majority of parents are just produce shitholes.
Are poor to terrible.
We're all just trying to do our best in this life, and unfortunately, we're not well trained for almost anything. And most parents are not well trained for parenthood.
No.
They're just they're taught parenthood by their parents, and if their parents were shitbags, they don't have much to go on.
Yeah, like I want to go back to what you were saying, Dan, about the default being maybe childlessness, the cultural default.
Yeah.
And it kind of ties into what Frank was saying is, one of the, I've been estranged, as you all know, from my parents for a long time, but one of the last kind of fight/conversations I had with my mother after the smoke cleared, we were sitting there and I said, "Why did you have kids?" And she said, "I don't know. We never talked about it."
Right.
But I think that was very common.
And I think it still is actually very common. I mean, the young generations now, there's a lot less pressure on them, but it's still there, and especially in the religious context, it's still it can be very intense.
Yeah.
And literally nobody's asked to think about it. Your mom, nobody said to your mom, "Hey, this is a really big deal. Are you sure you want to do this?"
No, I'm sure nobody said that.
And that's one of the things we need to talk about is regret, because everybody will tell someone the second you announce, "I don't think I want to have kids," everyone's going to challenge you that you are going to regret it for the rest of your life. And a lot of people
Put it on the pile, for fuck's sake.
right?
Like, yes.
Well, no, a lot of people are very, very concerned about that. And, I've read accounts of people going to therapy just to sort of sort through, will I regret this for the rest of my life? Well, Mark, as you're pointing out, lives have regrets.
Yes.
Every time you choose to go down one lane, you're excluding another one, and you will never know if that would have been a more fulfilling lane for you. You can't.
You can't know.
I want to point out, parents are not immune from this. And one of the interesting things about being a voluntarily childless person is that parents, for some reason, I have been the only person that multiple people have felt comfortable saying to me, "I love my child, but I wish that I hadn't had children."
Yeah, I've had a couple friends say something very similar to me as well.
And I think that that's actually a way more common sentiment than people know about, because nobody's willing to talk about it, because society would demonize anyone who said, I wish I hadn't chosen to be a parent. But it's actually a pretty common thing, because let's face it, parenthood is hard. So I wanted to talk about a few reasons not to have kids and a few bad reasons to have kids. So if you guys have any, throw them out there. In terms of reasons not to have kids, I think the best reason is you don't want to. Mm-hmm. I think we need to normalize that being a perfectly valid reason not to have children. Also, if you don't feel that you'd be a good parent, that's a great reason not to have kids.
Yeah.
Like, what's amazing is people will bring up these concerns and other people will try to talk them into doing it anyway, which is the worst thing you should do. If anyone tells you, "I don't think I'd be a very good parent," don't say to them, "Oh, you figure it out."
Yeah.
Let them not have kids.
Yeah, I put myself in that category.
Yeah,
I do too.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'd be a good doctor. Oh, you know what?
You need to go to medical school.
You should totally do it. I know people that have been talked into that too.
Yeah. The thing is, here's the thing. I love children. Like I said before, I'm good with children, but also I have, issues with depression and I have issues with anxiety. And I don't think that it would be good for me to have a child, to have that extra pressure in my life, to have that extra person that I have to deal with and that is my responsibility. It would not be good for me. And if it's not good for me, then I'm not going to be good for the kid. So I think if you don't feel that you'd be a good parent, that's not you admitting that you're a bad person. That's just saying, oh, this job is not, you know what? I don't feel like I would be a very good newscaster, and I don't think that I would be a good parent. So
Yeah.
other reasons not to have kids, like if you don't feel financially able, holy shit. People try to talk people into having kids when they don't feel like they're financially set up for it.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Well, nobody's ready. Nobody feels like they're ready to have kids. What? No, don't have kids. If you don't think you can afford it, don't bring a child into poverty.
Yeah.
That's a great reason not to have kids.
Yeah.
And also, if you don't like kids, probably don't have kids. Because a lot of people don't like kids, and that's okay. Like we're not all the same. And then there are the bad reasons to have children. For instance, first of all, multiplying and replenishing the earth is a terrible reason to have children.
Right.
The fact that other people want you to have kids, also not a great reason for you to make giant life choices about your own life. Like the amount that your mom wants to be a grandma is not enough.
So when I, and again, my families should not be taken as the yardstick for any family because it's a fucking free fire zone. But when I came out to my mother as a gay person, I think in my early 30s, just because it doesn't matter. Long story. Anyway, she started crying, and I'm like, "What is the issue?" And she's like, "Well, I want grandchildren." At the time, I think she had either 9 or 11 grandchildren.
Oh my God.
And
That's
it's like
insane.
It's like, so I'm just a seed pod.
Yes.
Like humanity is a recessive gene. I'm just a seed pod to deliver this seed to the next generation.
That's
to
right.
create the next. It's like, what the fuck kind of worldview is that?
Yeah. And I've had people tell me, here's another bad reason to have kids. I've had people tell me, but you're smart and you're kind and, you're a good person and we need more of those in the
they
world.
don't know you.
They don't know me, but I
Yeah.
mean, that's beside the point. Some people will say this to actually smart, kind people.
Right.
And like, again, yes, it would be nice if we had, because we know that dipshits and assholes are reproducing by the truckloads.
Yeah.
So it would be nice to counteract that. That's still not a good reason. That's not a reason for you to have kids.
Yeah. It's not an arms race.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you don't have kids, you're not depriving the world of, the genius that you could have been giving it.
Yeah.
You're just making a choice for yourself. One of the main things that was driving Andrea and me to think about having kids was a pretty deep curiosity about who we'd make. You know what I mean? We were like,
It's a roll of the dice.
What does that kid look like?
Yeah.
Who I am curious about who that kid would be. That's not a great reason to have kids, though. That's just curiosity.
Yeah.
And it's okay to let go of that. And also, I think we need to talk about this whole biological imperative / need to impart one's genes or pass the baton on. Legacy, if you will.
Ugh.
Because
No, thank you.
can anyone tell me in any real logical way why it's important to pass your genes on? We are not, biological mandates are real. And, you might feel some sort of biological urge to recreate, to reproduce. But we're capable of thinking past that.
Yeah.
Right?
People have said to me in the past, well, don't you want to carry on the family name? And I'm like, motherfucker, people can't even spell it. Like, I practically can't spell it. Enough's enough. Yeesh.
Yeah.
Totally. There's better family names. There's better family trees out there. Mine's a wreck.
Yeah.
So I just, that's all. I just wanted to make sure that we put it out there into the world that being child-free, being childless by choice is a valid, beautiful, amazing option.
Yeah.
And we've all done it. And look how not awful we are.
And going back to our prior segment, just about dialogue, whether you do or you don't, you should talk about it. right?
Yes.
If you're the person you're with in your life, your partner, your spouse, whomever, you should talk about it. Like before you decide to do it. If you're going to have children, really talk about it. If you're not going to, you can talk about it.
Well, and also understand that
make deliberate choices in your life.
You get to change your mind if you want to. I mean, not after you've had kids. Once you've had kids, you don't get to change your mind.
I mean, there was
but
a
you
clock.
can choose to be childless and then change. And yes, there's a time limit on that to some extent.
Frank, wasn't it Oklahoma where they passed a law that you could drop your children off at an emergency room, no questions asked?
And
it was like
away.
an anti-abortion kind of law, and some guy did it with his teenage kids. It's terribly
really?
sad. And it was the law, and
He
they
did it
couldn't
for
do it
real?
for real. Wow. I think it was Oklahoma.
I feel
That'd be
like
a great
that's a
joke,
different
right?
discussion.
Like that would-
That's probably better off for them if that's the kind of guy he is anyway.
Yeah, I personally feel like we should have some sort of system in place for parents to be able to back out, because we don't always know how good we're going to be or how
that
like,
is
how
Pandora's box, right?
Okay, that's why we're not
Because-
having that discussion right now.
It's called going out for a pack of smokes. I'll be right back.
Because I think if you made it more available, it would happen a lot.
Yeah,
There
it's
has to
true.
be
All right.
shame. There has to be right. Like
A
in order to
cost.
keep
There has to be a
people
cost.
in the role. I think that like I've been largely silent this whole time because like if you actually let me loose now, like I was saying earlier, like I had this morning and whatnot, and maybe my reaction has been to come out on the other side is just like really hating kids. But like we Dan, I actually took your advice and went to Dinosaur National Monument.
Oh, nice.
And of course, this is a thing that kids go to. It didn't even occur to me that there were going to be children at a dinosaur thing ruining my experience before going. Right? So
Frank is on the record not knowing that kids like dinosaurs. Funny.
So
All right. Well, this may be an ongoing conversation, but it's out there now. Let's move on.
Let's move on. Well, friends, that's it for this week's show.
Hey, we'd love to hear from you guys. Please, if you're childless and you know it, clap your hands and send us an email at howto@howtoheretic.com.
Or if you were a terrible person who avoided hell at the very last second by saying, "What's up, Jesus?" tell us about it at 903-88-HOW-TO, which is 903-884-6986. I'm also on Twitter at HowToHeretic.
Thanks so much to all of our patrons.
And thanks to our child that we love, no matter what, Cody Layton, for editing the show.
And thanks to all of you friends for tuning in. Bye-bye.